Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a upcoming colder pattern for the eastern United States, maybe some snow in parts of the northern plains and the Rockies, and also some warmer weather out in the western and southern United States as well. So we're going to be going over generally the pattern over the next couple of days and also over the next upcoming week. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. Very quiet after that very active day of severe weather that we had yesterday. Flood watches in effect for parts of Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. I believe those are a few air quality alerts in effect for southern Arizona, but other than that, really not a lot going on. A few frost advisories in northern Michigan, but again, not a lot going on in terms of watches and warnings today. Yesterday, we had a high temperature in Death Valley, California, where they got to 101 degrees Fahrenheit, and the low temperature was in Peter Sinks, Utah, where they got to 12 degrees Fahrenheit. The ice precipitation report was 4.52 inches of rainfall in Loganville, Georgia, and the highest snowfall report was in Maysville, Colorado, where they got 7.3 inches of reported snowfall yesterday. So here's the temperature anomalies, and basically how this works is that below normal temperature anomalies would mean that you are seeing colder than normal temperatures. So for example, once you get into that green color, that's 4 or more degrees below normal. If your average is, let's say, 70 degrees for that day, then you would be seeing a temperature of 66 degrees on that day, if that were to be your average. So you're basically just subtracting or adding that number to your average, and the average is taken for every single location on this map. So it's a little bit confusing, but it's basically a good way of seeing where the colder and warmer air is. The warmer air masses are going to be in the oranges, the reds, and the browns, and the colder air masses are going to be in the blues, the greens, the purples, etc. So that's generally how you can read this map. You can see that we have a little bit of high pressure building through the Rockies with a trough into the into the eastern United States. That's why we're getting all that cold air coming down from Canada, and you can even see that some of these averages are maybe 10 to 12 degrees Celsius below normal. So that would be closer to 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit below what is normal. And we're going to show you what the actual low temperatures are going to be in just a moment. You can see that warmer air lingering in for parts of the southwestern United States. So there's a little pocket of the United States that might stay warm during this entire event. But you can see that for the entire northern and eastern United States, we're dealing with a bunch of below normal temperatures over these areas. So this is where we're dealing with those colder temperatures. This is for Saturday. Here would be for Monday. And you can see that that cold air is still in place. The only safe places for warm air are going to be in Florida and then parts of the southwest. But the rest of the country below normal here for, again, much of the country from the Rockies all the way to the East Coast, where we have temperatures that are going to be 5 to 10 or more degrees below normal Celsius, which is about 10 to 20 degrees below normal in Fahrenheit. Here's for Tuesday, and you can see we're seeing a little bit more warm air building off the west coast, and we're actually going to start to see this area expand a little bit as this area of high pressure moves onshore from off the Pacific. As that moves onshore, and that's when we're going to start to see a little bit more warm air building, even closer to the Rockies as well. So it won't be all cold if you live in the west. It will be fairly cold, however, if you live in the eastern United States over the next week or so. So this is for Tuesday. Here's for Wednesday. And again, you can see that ridge building out into the western United States, where we have those warmer temperatures building, even maybe for the northern plains, getting in on some of the warmer temperatures. But for much of the eastern United States and also the central United States, we're still dealing with colder than normal temperatures. If we continue this forward, and just to show you kind of the upper air map, you're going to see that in the upper part of the atmosphere, we have a big low pressure right up here in Ontario, Canada, and this is just breaking down what's basically happening. So we have that upper level low down here. We have that surface low up here. So this is what we're dealing with the setup, and because of that, we have a lot of cold air just being dipped into the eastern United States. You have your high pressure in the upper atmosphere down here in Mexico, and that is rigid edging all the way up through the central and western United States, and that's why we're dealing with the warmer temperatures there, especially over the western United States. So that's kind of a breakdown of what we're dealing with in the upper part of the atmosphere, and that should be a good idea of why this is actually happening, because I think it is more important to look at the upper air maps instead of actually the lower part of the atmosphere. The lower part of the atmosphere is much more prone to fluctuation and for movement within the models, but once you go a little bit further up, that's when you start to get a little bit more consistency and you can actually understand what's actually happening. So here's the low temperatures that are expected. This is for tomorrow, and you can see that we're expecting low temperatures in the 30s for much of the northern plains, maybe even into parts of the interior northeast. So if you are a farmer or you are a gardener, over pretty much anywhere in that light blue shade or even that very light red shade, that's where you're dealing with temperatures below 40, maybe as low as 25 or 30. So some frost and freezes are possible, and the freezes are most likely where you're going to get below 32 degrees. That's most likely in the red area. So these areas, for example, would be where you're getting a freeze. The lighter blue is where you're dealing with more of just a frost type of situation. So this is for tomorrow morning. Here's for Friday morning. You're still dealing with some below freezing temperatures in parts of the northern plains. It is in the upper 30s in some of these areas, so you might not have to worry about freezes. For example, if you live in southern Minnesota, central Wisconsin, southern Michigan, Indiana, those areas probably won't have to deal with any freeze or frost issues. It's as you get further to the north, closer to the upper Great Lakes and also into the northern plains, and that's where you're going to have more of the issues. Here would be by Saturday, and you can see this entire trough system continuing to head further to the east. So you can see also in the northwest, by the way, cold temperatures. So you're dealing with 30s reaching all the way to the Pacific Ocean. That's fairly cold for the Pacific Northwest. So they typically don't see that level of cold air. And by the way, this is going to be on May 8th, according to this model. So this is not in the in let's say early April, where this might be a little bit more common. This is actually fairly far out into the springtime. So we're pretty much entering the summer time period over a lot of areas, and we're still dealing with these frost and freeze issues because we're dealing with temperatures that are going to be 10 to 20 degrees below normal. The frost and freeze issues, I think, for the weekend are going to be the biggest. That's kind of going to be the biggest time for frost and freeze. You can see that 32-degree line heads even further to the south, touching parts of Lake Michigan now, and even into parts of maybe even Lake Erie. Areas surrounding there could be down into the 30s as well. So some rather big areas in a large swath of the country that's going to be below normal and below freezing. Here would be by Sunday, and you can see that pretty much the entire northern tier of the United States is dealing with temperatures below 40, especially as you get away from the coast and as you get interior. That's where you're dealing with more of the worst of the cold air, and especially if you can get into more wooded areas or highly elevated areas, that's going to be the places that get the most or get the coldest temperature. So this is for Sunday. For Monday, still dealing with these frost and freeze concerns. So it's not going to be good if you're trying to start on your garden or if you're working on your farm. Really not a good situation to be in, because we're dealing with temperatures that are going to be, for the most part, right around the mid and upper 30s, and then you get further to the north and maybe even into the low 30s or upper 20s in some of these areas. So this could cause, of course, some issues when you're planting or gardening. Here would be by Tuesday, and they're still dealing with Tuesday of next week, by the way. We're still dealing with these below normal temperatures and these below 40 temperatures all throughout the northeastern quarter of the country, and then here would be for Wednesday of next week, and you can see still lingering on, although it does really warm up for the northern plains. So luckily, if you live in the northern plains, looks like you might get a little bit of relief next week when we might start to break up with all this cold air that's going to be just kind of hitting parts of the eastern United States. Here's a look of the snowfall, and we could be dealing with a little bit of snowfall. And if this does actually pan out in the northern plains, I might actually make a video on this, because it is fairly late in the season to be seeing 6 to 8 inch totals over some of these areas. But We still have to see whether that's going to actually happen. This would be for later this weekend and into early next week. So I'm still watching on that threat. It's not a guarantee that the northern plains necessarily will actually get in on some of that snowfall, but it's more certain that areas in the Rockies, especially the higher elevations, might get closer to 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Highest elevations could even get over a foot of additional snowfall. Here's what the Climate Prediction Center is showing for the next 6 to 10 days. So this is from the 10th all the way through the 14th, and they're expecting throughout this entire time period that we're going to stay in a colder than normal pattern for the northern and eastern United States, including parts of the central part of the country. So all these areas dealing with below normal temperatures, especially within those deeper shades of blue where they're expecting the most below normal temperatures. And then along the Gulf Coast and over the southeastern United States, maybe actually gets a little bit warm, especially if you live in areas like Florida, southern Georgia, southern Alabama, areas generally surrounding the Gulf Coast. That's where it's going to be the warmest. And then also along the West Coast, it also looks like it'll be fairly warm, but you will still have a couple of cooler shots here and there. Here would be the 8 to 14 day outlook, which is from the 12th through the 18th, and they're expecting a little bit less colder, so it's not going to be as cold as that 6 to 10 day time frame, but it still should be a little bit chilly, especially over the northern United States. From the Rockies all the way to the Northeast. That's where we're dealing with those below normal temperatures, and then over again the southeastern United States still above normal, and so is parts of the western United States where we're still dealing with some above normal temperatures. Here's the 3 to 4 week outlook, which goes from the 15th through the 28th, and this is showing you that we're expecting actually some above normal temperatures to return for much of the country, except for this north central part of the country where it does look like we might be dealing with average temperatures, and even into parts of North Dakota and Montana, as well as parts of south central Canada, we could be dealing with a little bit of below normal temperatures throughout this time period. And if we look at the 1 month outlook, it does look like it'll be probably fairly close to normal if you live in the northern United States, maybe a little bit below normal if you live in the upper Great Lakes, and it should be above normal if you live through the southern United States. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.